In February of 22, I read 3 things and I just didn't have a good time through February reading. The first I finished was the audiobook of Behold the Dreamers. This is one for our Swell book club that Ash had chosen, so I'm not going to talk too much about this one because we still need to have the actual book club meeting and post that on here when that's happened. But overall I liked it. I thought it was really interesting. He picked it because we need to be reading more authors from different backgrounds, different areas, not just the same typical stories. And so this was a narrative about a family coming from Africa over to America to live the American dream, to find success. So there's a couple, a guy and a girl, and their kids, and it was, when I read, I typically read for enjoyment, and it's not that this book wasn't good, it was really good, but for me it didn't have that escapism. It was real, it was authentic, it was raw, and even though it was a fictional story, it's like this is a real thing that is experienced. And it was really interesting seeing the lengths to which people would go to protect their family, and how different situations can affect the choices that you can make, and, you know, questioning moral values. I'll be honest, I didn't particularly enjoy this book, but it was still interesting. I'm still glad I read it, and I think it'll be a really interesting one to discuss in the book club. The second one took me freaking forever to read. It took me like 4 months. The second one was Red Rising, which I read on my Kindle. I'm glad I read this on my Kindle because I hated nearly every second of reading this book. I have disliked very few books with such a passion that I have hated Red Rising. It was awful. I hated every single character, I hated the writing, and I hated the story. There was nothing that made me want to read this except for the fact that we were reading it for the Philip Scale Book Club. It is the only reason I finished this book. I hated it. I really have nothing to say. I would not recommend it to anyone. It felt like it was just clearly ripping off every trope from young adult fantasy, dystopian, sci-fi stories and executing it really poorly. There was no character motivations, there was no character arcs, nothing that was interesting to grip onto. And one of my other pet peeves with this one, so it's a sci-fi book, and so they have like different machinery or different processes or different societies, and it's all said in the book, but it's never explained. And so you as a reader coming into this world, you're just piecing together what you can grab of this society to try and understand what's happening, and it's not clear at all. I think because I disliked it so much and I was just plowing through to the end, just like one chapter, just getting there like every day, one little bit, I think that my perspective is warped on it, in all honesty. And I think that because I was reading something that I so actively disliked for such a big portion of February, it affected the rest of my reading habits. If I was not reading it for book club, I would have put it down and picked up something that I would have liked. But I don't like when I go to book club, and if I don't like a book and just don't finish it and then be part of the conversation, like, you can't contribute to that conversation because you haven't read the book. So I stuck it out and I read it, and I have -50 intention of reading anything that he has written or that is within the rest of this series. I really didn't like it. Sorry if you're watching and you really loved it. I don't get it. And then I finished off the month. It was the last day of February and I went, oh shit, I've only read 2 books. Let's just read a comic, and that'll help increase the number that I've read. So I've been wanting to read the comics of Umbrella Academy for a long time. I adored the TV series. I think we watched it the day it came out, and I just fell head over heels in love with these characters and this story and this weird universe. So I've been meaning to get onto reading the comics for a long time. Didn't like them as much. There's some elements of, I think because I fell in love with this series, my perspective was warped, because I was going in going, I wonder what it's going to be like to see these characters that I've fallen in love with, and how they kind of came to be like that, or like what was the interpretation, what's changed. I just feel like there was no character arc, there was no plot, there wasn't a lot that actually happened in this. It was weird and I just didn't get it. I think it just went over my head a bit much, and I feel like the ideas that were expressed in here were executed much better within the TV series. I was always going to be really biased coming into it. I wasn't a huge fan of the art style. Like, I'm not the biggest comic book reader, so I am still learning to read comics. It's not my favorite medium, and I was coming into this one especially as a fan of the series, so I think there was never going to be a way that it would have lived up to my expectations of my adoration of these characters. Overall, Feb was kind of disappointing reading month, but it's already the 13th of March and I've had a much better time reading this month. I've kind of put myself on a self-inflicted book ban, not really for any particular reason other than I just want to read the stuff that I've got. Like, we keep buying more books. You can see it behind me. There's so many books that I haven't read, so I really want to try and read through them, but I like buying books too. And it's been said before by nearly every single reader, book buying and book reading are two very different hobbies, and you can't fight me on that. So yeah, book buying ban, I don't think that that's ever a successful thing for anyone, to be honest. And I'm already halfway through one of the 4 books, and I'm about to pick up the second, so it's fine. I'm okay with it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next month. Bye.